What would you do with the last days you have left living on Earth? Would you rather spend the last days with your family and let go of a relentless fight to maybe find a way to save humanity and your family? Or would you rather spend every day at work as a scientist to find a cure to this deadly virus, wiping humanity away in order to save your family? Keep in mind, there is no guarantee that you would be able to find a cure, and that means spending the last few days in the lab, working day and night away from your family, which could all be in vain, away from your loved ones. That is the choice given to a renowned scientist by the name John Pilgrim, someone who was widely celebrated as the lead scientist in a team discovering the cure to cancer and all major deadly diseases and health conditions. John has 6 days left on Earth to decide whether to spend them with his family, as there is no guarantee he would be able to find a cure to this deadly virus and save his family and the entire human race, or to be more pragmatic and spend all those days in the lab working tirelessly away from his family to find the cure, as that's the very last hope. He's left with this difficult choice that, on one hand, these 6 days might be the last days he will see his family, and on the other hand, spending these 6 days away from his family might remedy for the time not with them, letting them live on for many more happy years to come. In one chance, you have quite literally one chance or a few days to save the world, including your family, and you can only play the game once, unless you play it online and use incognito or VPN, which I personally did. There are several outcomes and variations based on how the player plays the game, but there are mainly 2 endings. John Pilgrim, the protagonist of the game, has a modest life, living in his 2-bedroom house with his beloved wife, Penny, and young daughter, Molly. Penny urges John to go to work, as today is a big day for him for a recent groundbreaking discovery that he and his team, which he led, made. Penny kisses John goodbye, wishing him the best of luck, anticipating to see her hard-working husband back in the evening as he works late hours. Outside in the bright and sunny day with a very pleasant weather, he reads the daily newspaper to see himself mentioned on the trending topic of the day, that he discovered the cure to cancer, which he worked on for 7 long years. The cure is named E48K15, which has shown so much success in destruction of harmful cells, viruses, bacteria, and other forms of pathogens that the authorities approved the use of this cure through a gas form to the public to eradicate diseases such as common cold, malaria, HIV, and so many other deadly diseases which have been taking so many human lives on a daily basis. This is the start of a utopia where disease and death from illness is the challenge of the past, with humanity being on the right step to achievement and new discoveries. On his way to work, he sees the beautiful urban area he lives in, always busy with people and cars driving by, with John knowing humanity, as everyone knew before, would not be the same and would change for the better forever, with a smile on his face and a deep happiness from within. Reaching the work after some time, he is met by Jim, his colleague who has always been jealous of John, who instead would rather see him fail, seeing the lives of many innocents destroyed and not saved, just for John not to succeed. With a nasty and sarcastic attitude, he greets John, with jealousy pouring out of him like spoiled milk. Of course, not everyone shares Jim's stance and opinion, as everyone else within the pharmaceutical company stands in anticipation for John's arrival, congratulating him and celebrating this huge once-in-a-lifetime achievement, with his boss extremely happy. The success of the company is shown through the graph behind them on how their shares and value have skyrocketed and soared, being one of the most successful pharma companies. As this day couldn't get any better, Annie, a colleague who worked closely with John, a longtime admirer of him, asks him to relax and not work today, as after 7 years of continuous hard work, he deserves a day off, having a drink and celebrating his big achievement. Of course, a workaholic and determined John has a difficult choice to make, whether to work or have a drink with Annie, which both have different outcomes towards the end, but for now, we choose to have a drink with Annie and have a break from from all these years of hard work. Spending the entire day out of work, enjoying a drink or two with the colleagues such as Annie, Bruce, and Ryan, who worked very closely with John as his team. John goes home late, awakening early to find his wife having a nice bath, informing him that the phone has been strangely ringing like crazy from his work all day, asking him to urgently go to work. Surprised to what this urgency might be, John goes out of his house, picking up the latest paper to read something that shocks him so badly that he becomes pale instantly and drops the papers on the floor in a state of shock. The paper reads that the E48K15 cure to cancer, which he developed alongside his colleagues, has turned out to be the most contagious and deadliest disease known to humankind in its entire history. The substance, which seems to have been created and developed through modifying a virus cell, doesn't seem to stop at killing and destroying harmful cells, viruses or bacteria only, but it spreads and kills all healthy and living cells of the humans, leading to one of the most excruciating deaths ever, with the victims becoming sickly and weak before bleeding to death. Unfortunately, it is too late, as thousands and millions were already administered this drug, which on its own would go on to spread rapidly, infecting every living thing, including plants on Earth. This troubling news gives John weak legs, who barely manages to get himself to the workplace, met by the boss, informing him that they screwed up, and due to that, all the fundings have been pulled, with almost everyone from the company leaving, apart from the major scientists and the ones who worked on this supposed cure. The shares graph behind depicts how their company value has completely plummeted, reaching almost zero. Starting as a good news and a cure to save humanity, this discovery turned out to be the extinction of Earth and all living cells, turning Earth into a rocky wasteland. Ryan, one of the scientists under John's supervision with lower experience and expertise, shocked to what has been going around, asks John if it's that bad, not knowing the gravity of the matter. John subsequently goes to the roof, seeing everyone flutter around aimlessly to get some fresh air and clear his mind and think of the best scenario in this matter, where he sees Matthew, one of the major scientists involved in developing the cure, standing on the ledge. Matthew explains that he holds himself liable even though he personally authorized and saw the results of the tests thousands of times, not able to live with himself anymore, bringing his story to a grim end. This leads to the closure of the company for the day due to this traumatic event, with authorities reporting on the gravity of the matter publicly on TV. With only 4 days left before the complete annihilation of Earth, John awakens being very scruffy, without his lab coat and work uniform, with his wife fast asleep, seemingly knowing about the news. Thinking she's asleep as John tries to leave to work, Penny, in a soft tone, pleads with him to stay, as nothing really matters anymore, and this deadly virus won't rest until it claims everyone's life, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Torn between going back to work and actually finding a way to save his family, he sees his daughter Molly in the hallway, asking why she doesn't have to go to school today, clearly unaware that the world is coming to an end, and majority of workplaces, shops, schools, and infrastructures are shut. Reading the daily papers, the authorities report on how to identify the virus. It turns out, majority of the world has contracted this deadly virus, and it won't be long before everybody contracts it. The early signs are the plants in the targeted area start to wither and die, as it seems the virus kills plant cells quicker than human cells. Subsequently, John gets in his car and drives, seeing the once happy busy people protesting and rioting, with the city coming into chaos and anarchy. At work, everyone has left apart from the boss, Bruce, and Ryan, and people who worked on the cure. On the roof, John meets the boss, who instructs him to go back home as there's no point to any of this anymore, and John as a result has the option to stay and work or go back home to his family. John in here decides to go home and spend the last days with his family, actually seemingly having some quality time together, with Penny appreciating John going back home the day before and spending time with her in these last crucial days. She informs him to get the daily papers and come back home to spend these days together. As John collects the daily paper, he witnesses the surrounding plants all dying, depicting how the virus has reached their home as well, with their days of life being numbered. The paper reads 50% of the entire world population will perish by Saturday, the day after, as only 3 days are left for absolute extinction. As John decides to go back home to his family, he sees a car in the distance approaching very fast. As the car comes to a stop, all the passengers get out all together at once, with the remaining scientist team begging him to get back to work as he is the last hope of human survival. John apologizes to his colleagues and bids them farewell, as it might be the last time he will ever see them again. People who truly cared about saving humanity, spending 7 years of their lives developing a cure for cancer just to backfire and kill everyone on the face of Earth instead. Even till now, despite not being paid and having no benefit in it at all, they still try to save humanity and being the last ones to go to work, working on a new cure. John leaves them behind, going back home as his family is more important to him and he cannot see them dead one day on his return from work, as they are all he has left in this world. Spending the day in the house with only 2 days left before humanity goes extinct, John decides to go to work as the wife seems to be sickly and not really willing to wake up. As he reaches the company's building, he finds a twitching man holding a bloodied knife who has seemingly killed the other staff members, having a writing with blood on the wall saying sorry. This person turns out to be none other than the jealous scientist, Jim, who never liked John. He rushes towards John to stab him and kill him, but John swiftly disarms him and takes the knife, with a cowardly and emotional Jim running out, getting in his car and driving away. Unfortunately, in this time, there would be no hope of reporting this to any working police anymore, as possibly all of them are with their families in the last days as well, if not dead already. John spends the day alone in the lab, working really hard to find a way to find a cure to this recently developed deadly virus. As he comes back late at night, after spending the entire day in the lab, as he gets back home late at night, a heavy feeling grips his body and a knot forms in his stomach. The eerie silence of the neighborhood, including his own house, forms a feeling of impending doom. As soon as he opens the door, he is welcomed by the horrifying scene of his wife lying motionless in the pool of her own blood, having been murdered. He quickly rushes to Molly's room, being in a state of shock, only wanting to see his daughter well. But unfortunately, he sees her little stature under the blanket with a stream of blood formed beneath her bed. He cannot feel his knees anymore, weak to the shocking realization that his family is dead. He then goes to the bedroom that he used to share with his wife, just to see the motionless body of Jim, his jealous and toxic co-worker who has been the culprit of his family dying. Someone who blamed him for the humanity's extinction, taking it on his family as he was too much of a coward to kill John. As John's family is murdered, he has nothing else to live for. The virus has made him very weak, unable to walk normally, coupled with the sorrow of losing his family. He buried them right in front of their house, getting in a car, still having the choice to whether go to work or to the park. Going to work, John encounters the corpses of his colleagues who have been murdered by Jim, who killed them in revenge for developing this drug, becoming the ultimate killer of humanity. John has the option to work or end it here. If he continues to work, he is met with death shortly after, unable to find a cure. As he is the last hope for humanity as well, with his death, the entire Earth becomes void of life, with humanity being a thing in the past. The other option is go to the park and at least have a peaceful death. In there, he imagines the soul of his daughter climbing on his back, accompanying him, as if a representation of John joining his murdered daughter and wife. With that image, John goes and sits on the bench in the park, slowly taking his last labored breaths before letting out a big gasp and closing his eyes for the last time, joining his family, and with that, the last hope for humanity's survival is gone, all dying soon after. Another variation is actually John not defending himself fast enough when Jim rushes him, which leads to him getting stabbed and dying in the company's building, with Jim seemingly leaving to kill his family afterwards or just running away. The story ends right here with John being murdered. Another ending is when John continues the same route as before, but when asked on the last 3 days to go back to work, he decides to go to work and join his colleagues. When he enters the company's building, he is met by Annie, one of his biggest admirers who worked closely with him and asked him for a day off, having drinks together. Annie, in here, provides John with a proposition that she has always been his biggest admirer and has always had a crush on him. Despite being married with a child, she shamelessly asks John as it might be the last day for them being alive and nothing matters anymore. She asks him maybe they can leave work and have an affair, to which John can accept or refuse. But for the purpose of this ending, he accepts and cheats on his loving wife, Penny, who was his biggest supporter, the mother of his child, and someone who always waited for him patiently back at home despite his long shifts. When John gets back home late at night, he is confronted by Penny, who instantly knows what's going on, especially as he wasn't answering his phone. As a result, she feels extremely betrayed, especially during these horrible times where people spend time with their loved ones, as they are the last days they can be together. And John, instead, preferred to have an affair, hurting his wife so badly. On that note, Penny cries, not believing what John has done, leaving the last days to her parents' house, taking Molly, leaving John all alone on his own for the last days alive. Awakening the next day, being the last 2 days alive, John goes to work to see Bruce and Annie, both dead, with a big sorry written on the wall, seemingly killed by Jim and the disease. John in here has the choice to continue work for the next 2 days to no avail, not finding the cure and passing away, or ending it all, going up to the roof, as after all, he cannot live with the immense guilt of cheating on his wife, losing both his wife and his daughter just because of a few hours of selfish pleasure, not being considerate to how much pain and suffering he has caused. He betrayed the trust of his wife in the last few days of being alive, deserving to be alone, and with that, he deserves what he gets. In the case John misses even one opportunity of working a day, working towards finding a cure, the story ends whether with John dying in the park, in the lab while working, or on the roof. On the last day, his family vanishes with no sign of his wife or daughter anywhere to be seen, which presumably means that they passed away from the disease. However, if John doesn't miss any opportunity for working towards developing a cure, he does actually manage to find it, but at what cost? Dismissing his wife's pleas to stay home day after day, believing his efforts are fruitless and they should cherish the last days together. On the last 3 days before the complete annihilation, Penny cannot take it any longer and she passes away, which leads to John discovering this horrible event when going back home late evening, falling to his knees and crying, not able to forgive himself, not knowing what to say to his daughter, Molly. How could he confess that his work caused the extinction of humans and the death of her mother? His tears blur his vision, with his mind being cloudy, thinking all night. Next day, Molly innocently asking where mommy is. John is speechless and he does the only thing he knows best, working hard and using the last days to save his daughter at least, as nothing else matters to him. If he could die now, he would, but he cannot let his daughter be orphaned and die from the disease. It's something no parent would ever want to see. So John, a loving dad, carries on with the hope that he will find a cure and save his daughter. Carrying his daughter on his back with his wife buried right in front of their house, he goes on to working harder than ever before to find a cure. The day passes and he awakens the next day with both him and his daughter being extremely sick. Yet he knows he's too close to give up now. Just one more day might save his daughter. As he gets to the company's lab with the clock ticking, his daughter becomes too sick to cling onto her dad's back any longer, which he gently puts her down, telling her not to worry as daddy will be right back, as he's too close, with Molly going into labor breathing, closing her eyes as if slowly dying. John rushes to the lab, and after a short time he cannot believe that he actually found the cure to save himself and his daughter and the rest of humanity. He first injects himself and slowly regains his health and vitality and runs with all his might to Molly and injects her with the cure. Waiting patiently for what feels like hours, there is no movement and no breathing, with the shocking realization that Molly is now dead and there's nothing he can do any longer. John found the cure, but just not fast enough to save his daughter. At this point, John cannot believe what's happened, as he found the cure to save his daughter, not accepting that she's dead, completely losing his mind and becoming delusional, carefully lifting the corpse of Molly and taking her to the park while it's snowing, sitting her on the bench while sitting down himself, being happy and smiling into the distance, not accepting that his daughter is dead. In his mind, wanting to believe and wanting so desperately to have the delusion, as he cannot imagine anything else, that his daughter is well and alive, not leaving the bench, being with his daughter, as if for eternity. This is by far the saddest ending, as he finds the cure, but just several minutes too late to save his daughter, and he becomes so mentally damaged that his mind cannot allow for him to believe that he couldn't save his daughter, and he was completely powerless despite his brilliance and persistence never failing him. The other alternative here for John is to take Molly to park for the last 2 days, where she dies on the last day, whom he buries next to his deceased wife, with the last day whether dying in the lab, on the roof, or in the park, with the memory of his deceased family whom he could not save being with him, lingering.